Good morning, everyone. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a little series on barrel firing. I'm going to do a barrel firing here in a couple of weeks, maybe even a little less. And I have a dozen or so pots to go in the barrel, and they're all going to get burnished with Terra sigillata. So today, I'll show you how I prepare the pots for putting on the Terra Sig and applying it and burnishing it. So I have a little pot right here. This is all earthenware. I pit fire earthenware instead of raku. It's a smooth, well, it's a very smooth body. So here I have here's my Terra Sig, my bucket, and all I do is I put that in a little bowl here, and I use a little Chinese brush here, very fine bristles, a little Hakame brush or whatever they call them. First thing I do to prepare a pot is I sand it. This is drywall sanding screen. You can get it at any home builder, whatever. And I sand the pots until they're smooth. I sand all the throwing lines out of them until they're as smooth as possible. Okay, but as you can see, there's sanding marks in them still. So what I do is I take it over to the sink and I wash them with a sponge. So here we go. Okay, I'm back. So here's the pot I have. So literally, I'm just going to take just a little yellow sponge here, like this, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe the dust off and kind of just rub it a little bit like this. Now, all that does is it kind of melts those sanding marks together, melts them in nice, and it gets all the dust off as well from sanding it. So every place I want to put Terra Sig, I kind of wipe off. And that's it. Dry my hands and kind of smooth it around. That makes a pretty smooth surface. Gets pretty much most of the throwing lines and sanding marks off. So now we're ready to put on some Terra Sig. Okay, so now here I am applying the Terra Sig. I just start by putting a coat on. I already put one on. I had to restart the camera there. So I put a coat on all the way to the bottom, like this. Starting on the bottom. When I have two coats on like I do now, let that dry up for just a few seconds. Just until the shininess goes away. And I flip it upside down. And I apply a couple of coats on the top half here. I don't usually put more than two coats, 2.5, 3 at the most on these pots. That's all I do. So there's 2 to 3 coats on there now. Any drips or anything, you just kind of catch them, make sure you brush them in. Now this is drying for literally 15 seconds, 20 seconds, kind of dry today. I take my plastic bag and I just burnish it quick. I don't spend a lot of time on them, just make them shiny. The more you rub these, the shinier they get. But I find that it doesn't take a whole lot to get a good shine on them. Yeah, that's all there is to it. This is all I do to get my pots ready for pit firing. After this, I'll fire them in the kiln to 018. So. Here's a load of pots I have that are all ready to go in the kiln. Over the past few days, I do a couple a night. As you can see, it only takes 5 minutes or so. So, do a couple a night. 3, 4, 5 days later, I got a whole bunch of them. Now, the color and the difference in the color is there's two different earthenware bodies I'm using here, and those pots in the front are drier. Those I did a few days ago, whereas that one in the back there and that little bottle vase in the back, those I just did, so they're a little on the wet side. That one on the left is a different clay body, it's a little on the wet side. So they'll dry and they'll all kind of get lighter, and then, like I said, I'll put them in the kiln at 018. I'll just fire them up. That way they survive the barrel firing much better. If I try and fire these raw, I always have problems. So now I bisque fire them not too hot because they lose their shininess. So looks like I have one more to go, and then I'm all done with this group. And then I'll put them in a biscuit kiln, and then I'll show you guys how I fire them. Okay, I'm ready to put all my pieces in a barrel here. I have maybe a dozen or so. As you can see, I wrapped them in rags soaked with red iron oxide and copper carbonate. Some of these have fine copper wire, and things like this are stuffed with hay that has been soaked in copper carbonate and red iron oxide and some fine copper wire. So all of them look kind of like this. There's about a dozen of them, all wrapped up different ways. I'm also going to put a few in that don't have any sort of treatment at all, so those will go in there. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, all the pottery is now loaded in this barrel kiln of mine. As you can see here, it's about 3/4 full. There's about 15 or 18 pieces of pottery in there, all wrapped up, all tight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the rest of the barrel with these sticks here. I have some air holes in the bottom, hopefully get a little bit more airflow, and we'll light it up. Hopefully we'll get some good results. Alright, so for this burn, what I did is, as I stacked the pottery down, I put sticks vertically down into the pile, packed straw, sawdust, small kindling all the way down through the pack, all the way up to the top, and obviously put a big pile of kindling on the top and lit it up. So it's burning from the top down now, and the vertical pieces of wood should carry the fire and the heat down towards the sawdust and then throughout all the pottery. So hopefully I'll have some good results. Hopefully I'll get some coloring with the red iron oxide and the copper carbonate in there, and I'm also going to put more handfuls of salt as I burn. Matter of fact, I'm going to put a handful in here in a minute. I'm going to burn the rest of this wood. Actually, not the rest of it. I'm going to burn that far pile, which is oak, next. It's going to go on top, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some actual firewood, some big thick logs, and put those on top. Let that burn for an hour or so, then I'll cap it off and let it burn all the way down. So the next video you see will be me unloading this. Thanks. So I'm all done firing, and here's the results. I took 4 out already, cleaned them up. I'm going to do the rest here, and I'll show them to you in a little bit. Burned on very nicely. Got some really good results so far.